Hi, before we really get going, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about equipment. Now, I'm left-handed, so um, I have to research and find appropriate scissors for me. I find the Friscar very good. Could you look at the table, please, Eloise? Right, so these are my Friscar. So now, if you are left-handed, do beware that sometimes you have a left-handed handle, but the blade is still right-handed, so you do need to watch out for that. I also like to use a rotary cutter, and with a rotary cutter you must have a self-healing mat. This one is from Alpha, same brand as the rotary cutter. There are other cheaper rotary cutters, and it has been suggested that you can use the Alpha blade in a cheaper brand handle. And I did try this, and I found that the handle seized up. It wasn't so good, so now I've gone Alpha for the handle and the blade. These will need replacing quite regularly. Lycra does blunt the blade very, very quickly, and the fabrics I've been using today, as you can see, they've made quite a lot of dust, which I'm not going to attempt to flick off because I'll end up cutting my finger. Then there's pattern paper that I should have said yesterday. It's best not to cut into your master pattern. As you can see, the tissue is still intact. Much better to trace over it. And if you have got a bricks and mortar shop, you can buy it literally by the metre, and it should work out about 45 pence per metre. Some people like, I think they call it dob and dab paper. I just use plain. I'm just going to reach over here. So this is the kind of thing, although actually I have a feeling that might have been baking paper, which you can also use if you can't get access to pattern paper, then baking parchment works just as well. But so I do buy this. I do buy proper paper by the metre, and I usually ask for 10 metres at a time. It's much cheaper than buying the pre-cut packets that you might see packaged from Hemline, because that will probably only give you 2 sheets a metre square. And if you are cutting trousers, then that's not so good. Pins is an important thing. These look very, very ordinary. They are actually made by Prim, and they are ballpoint pins, which really just means that they're not as sharp, and that is actually better for Lycra because they slip between the fibres. If you have an ordinary sharp pin, you'll find that you have to like stab through. It separates the fibres. It goes and it splits them, and you'll be stabbing into your fabric. So much better to buy a pot of ballpoint pins. Some people like these clips, particularly people who are doing cover stitching. I don't use them very often, although people do say that find it easy, because if you put your fabric in, I think that actually works out to be 1/4 of an inch. So sometimes people like to use that as a bit of a guide. Another very useful tool, again, Prim, a trick marker. This you might find in the quilters section of the haberdashery department. Looks purple, dab it on, and evaporates in the air, and come back in a few hours and that would have disappeared. Quilter's ruler. I like this for for cutting parallel strips, and I use that in conjunction with the rotary cutter. Very good. Just think this cutting board here, this is on the metric side. If I flipped it over, it would have imperial. I just find I like this side better, even though I grew up imperial. I can think in feet and inches. I can't really think in the centimetres. And then we need to go and think about our fabric. I'll just pop this back in before I don't lose it. The back of your envelope, it has your stretch guide. Now I'll show you how to do this. And this is off cut. Don't use your fabric on the edge. You'll find it's more stretchy on the edge. So you actually want to pinch in the middle, 10 centimetres, and this gives you your guide there, and then move it along, and that's easily the distance, which I think this pattern actually asks for 75% of stretch. Now you then need to fold your fabric the other way. Now this fabric, don't know really what this is. Right, again, same thing, but this time that has got much less stretch than the pattern asks for. If I put it on my grid, this big square is 10 centimetres. Stretch, ooh, it's just about got 30% stretch in that direction. I talked yesterday about the need for this pattern to have extra length, and I did and ah, should I do it as per the pattern, or shall I do it as I originally made this dress? And then I checked my stretch and I thought, you know what, I am going to make it extra long, and that will compensate in part for the reduced stretch that we have on this fabric. So I'll just quickly look at this again. As you can see, that would have been my original pattern, and I cut across the shorten or lengthening line, divided it, put a spare piece of paper behind, and I've actually added to this just over an inch, probably just a scant inch and a quarter. But so that will compensate for my lack of stretch, and it will also be comparable to the original dress, which I say I did lengthen the original dress. So what I have done today is I've cut out all my pieces. As I did look for coordinating fabrics, and I find that this is another area where people don't get the result they were hoping for when they maybe use a lycra in the skirt, and you get a much heavier look, especially for competition. Really, you want something flimsy, either a stretch mesh, which you can use a double layer if you want it opaque, or a double layer of georgette or pearl chiffon if you want it slightly shiny. So yeah, the fabric type affects how the skirt moves, and if you have a heavyweight fabric, that's going to make a difference to your skirt. So it's very, very important you think about how your fabrics are going to move when they're on ice. Also, you need to have coordinating fabrics. Now, I'm actually not practicing what I preach here, because this was a remnant that another dressmaker was having a destash. This fabric isn't a dance fabric as such. It's a lycra which I bought in my local my local sewing shop. It is a lycra, but it's a shiny lycra. More often used for dance leotards, but I can't remember why, but I obviously needed a piece of orange quickly. The skirt fabric, I'm just going to bring it over. So I've cut my skirt. It's not sewn together yet, but this is stretch mesh, and this has got quite an open weave and it feels quite stiff, and that is because this wasn't bought in the UK. This was a trip to America, and my husband brought this back for me from the garment district of New York. But it tones fairly well. We'll definitely get away with that. And the other material in this dress is lining, which you can get from Funky Fabrics or Trimmets. Stock, the same thing. Again, it is from Funky Fabrics, but I say you can buy it from Trimmets. Quite shiny. It's a lot thinner, quite stretchy. And what I've done is I have cut all my pieces out. I haven't sewn them together yet because I wanted to show you a couple of things. So my lining, I've lined only the front piece, and that is because I don't want to add bulk, and a lining doesn't serve any purpose for this particular dress on the back. But for modesty, even young girls, that lining will help. Also, this is the front. So this is the V shape coming up to the halter, and this is the back. And as you can see, the back is narrower than the front, and that is how it is supposed to be. So don't worry if you think, oh my goodness, why doesn't it match up? It's kind of not meant to. The bodies are rounder at the front. We all have tummies, etc. But your back is quite a bony part of the body. There's nothing to stick out. That's why your back is narrower. One last thing about the lining. How did I get it on so flat? Well, the answer is I used some of this spray. It's 505. I think this is from Madeira. Might be again. Go to the quilting section of your haberdashers. And what I did is I'll demonstrate how to do this in another video, but briefly, you shake the tin, you hold it a long way away, because this glue, I don't know if you can hear it, is liquid until you press the can, and then as it hits the air it becomes solid, lands on your fabric. Give it a couple of minutes to go tacky, otherwise it will be really unworkable. And how I did this, picked up some fluff. How I did this was I had my lining fabric nice and flat, and just think, if you've ever made a fruit pie and you're putting your pie crust on, similar thing, lay it down and then roll it down onto your fabric until you've got all the wrinkles out, it's flat, and then I cut around it. And what I've done here is, because this glue does disappear in a few hours, and I won't be dealing with the top and bottom today, so what I've done is to secure it, I've done a zigzag stitch around the bottom and across the top. I've left the sides because I will be overlocking those today. So when I have my back, I'll line it up, put that through the overlocker, and that will be my bodice completed, other than obviously the band that will go round and become the halter neck. So there we are. We have all our pieces cut out. We have all our pieces cut out, and next time I will show you the construction of the knickers and how to apply the elastic to the legs. So that's for next time, so join me soon. Thank you. Bye.